Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming one of the great cult movie directors of the 80s. And I'm talking about Fritz Kiersch. I cannot wait. The guy directed Stephen King's Children of the Corn, the immortal classic Tuff Turf, the most underrated classic of all time, Under the Boardwalk, and several others, like Winners Take All and Fatal Charm and Gore. And I'm having him on the show today to talk about all that stuff and how he began in the industry and what he's up to these days. And it's going to be pretty cool. The guy directed some classics that I've loved ever since I was a kid. And I am just so honored to have him today. So yeah, here is my interview with Fritz Kiersch. Going back in time, did you fall in love with film early on?
Yeah, I was strangely got involved with film when I was at late elementary school. A friend of mine, his parents had an 8mm camera, and when we had nothing to do, we would sneak it out of the house, put together our nickels, and buy 8mm film stock, and then record each of us taking our bicycles and jumping over like cinder blocks and things like that, and doing stupid things. And then we would watch them, and we figured out we might be able to even tell a story, and so we kind of moved up in that level. So my fascination with how it's made started early. How and what entertainment is all about really started back when I watched Ed Sullivan and all those variety show things that went on when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it started a long time ago. You get hooked on it.
Yeah. Do you remember the first movie you ever saw?
Oh, the very first one. Probably those early Gladiator movies in the early 60s.
Oh, yeah.
I remember being taken to those. And one in particular, one of those Steve Reeves films when he was chained to pillars and he would pull them down with his strength and they looked like they were made of marshmallows. It always made me laugh, and I always thought that was cool. And those were kind of fun. Specifically, anyone that stood out, no, there were Westerns around all the time. We didn't have a television when I was little, so going to the movies was kind of a big treat on weekends and doing those kind of things when I got old enough to go by myself. But when I was really young, I was taken to I went to a birthday party, I guess around 5th grade or so, 4th grade. Mm-hmm. And the movie that we watched was part of one of those classic Saturday afternoon movie events where there was a serial movie first, a little short with some kind of cliffhanger event that went on for the heroes, and then you watched the featured film. It was interrupted or it had an intermission and people came on stage and tried to sell you candy bars. And I remember those. Those were cool. That was probably the earliest film memory I have. But I can't, outside of Steve Reeves and those silly things, think of a specific title that I said, wow, I want to do that.
Yeah. What are your favorite movies?
Oh, I think Clockwork Orange is one of the top films that I've enjoyed over the years and studied.
That's a good one.
Color of Money is a fantastic masterpiece of cinema. I think it's just genius in the way that it's organized, structured, framed, how the language of the cinema is explored more deeply than most films, except perhaps some of the early cinema films out of Germany, silent films. I love the Goodfellas. I think that's another excellent film. And of course, everything I've ever done is excellent.
Yeah. I agree.
Hardly hold a candle to some of those great pieces that are out there in history, cinema history.
So are you originally from Texas?
No, I was born in Texas, but my father was a university professor. And so we moved to different cities when I was young, and through his research, we lived in a couple of different places in Europe. But really, I grew up in upstate New York. So at an early age, I was out of Texas and in New York for the majority of my growing up.
Nice. So after high school, did you go to film school?
No. See, there was a little problem there, Tommy. As I mentioned, my father, being the professional that he was, he required my sisters and me to all enter into a strong, long-term career-driven profession. A lawyer, doctor, or an engineer, professional. We all go and get PhDs kind of things. But I got fascinated by cinema and particularly radio when I was in high school, and I thought that was a much more interesting area to engage in. So I wanted to study communications, and so my drive was to go to a film school, to go to actually Ithaca College where I grew up. I had a fantastic film school at the time, and it still does, and I wanted to go there, but this created huge conflicts in our family, and I couldn't. My sisters were already at Cornell. I was supposed to go on to Cornell. I did go to Cornell, but I wanted to study film, so that conflict caused problems. And I eventually studied and graduated with a degree in economics, which about the middle of my college career, I got fascinated with it, studied it deeply, so much so I couldn't take any more courses in economics, and had to take the requirements of the degree, the art and the music and the other literature courses. So I started to fall back into what I liked, which was cinema. I took that and then just took those and said, that's what I'll do. And I'll go to graduate school in cinema. I finished the undergraduate in social science and then thought, okay, I'll become a cinema filmmaker at the graduate level. And so off to Los Angeles I went after I graduated from the university to start that. But that didn't really last very long because I got a job making television commercials on the crew. I was the crew, the utility, the production assistant. And I thought that more fun than studying. So I took that road and slowly stopped doing the graduate study work and doing more and more commercial television work, TV commercial work, and eventually became a camera assistant in the union. And then I was completely out of graduate study. And that was a big mistake. But it was a huge good thing because I learned everything by doing it on the job. And I got chances that a lot of kids don't get because they don't have the background when they enter industry, because I was already in it. So I kind of had to step up on my friends who went to graduate school because I was doing more things. And it allowed me to get into directing when I was very young, 28, 29.
Yeah, did your family eventually accept your fate?
Oh, yeah. My parents both came to my first screening of my first film, cast and crew screening, and we did it on the MGM lot, which was very fun, and so that was very impressive. And then about my third film or fourth film, I got my dad to be in the film as an extra. Nice. Then I put him in another film with a speaking role, and so he is kind of memorialized on film a couple of times at his age at that time, and so it's kind of fun to look at him because he's still alive that way. But they're very proud of him. He used to send me clippings and things, and so did my mother, from the newspapers about, I don't know, any news about the films I was making or anything about me. So, it turned around completely. And you just have to prove yourself that you are who you want to be, and I think every parent will support their child that way.
I agree. I think most parents are terrified about their kids getting into show business in the beginning, but then once they prove themselves, then they're okay with it.
Oh, yeah. I think parents on the whole are terrified on anything their children will do that is different from what they think is correct. And they worry. I'm a parent. I think about my children, but I'm also very proud of what they've accomplished, and I don't worry about them. They're in their 30s now, and they're just on their own tracks. But yeah, I think all parents do. It's part of our nature, but it's also something we have to realize we have to step away from at some point. We have to let the kids go. Do it.
Right. So how did Stephen King's Children of the Corn come into your life?
Well, as I said, I started in the industry, in the entertainment industry, in the film industry, in the process industry, making TV commercials. And it kind of grew for me where I got more and more involved in the administration of the production side of things. And so I started my own television production company, making TV commercials for regional and national advertising agencies, and became pretty good with it and was doing really, really well. It was a pretty balanced income. I had a business partner. He was the producer and I was the director. And things were working a lot, and of course we hired a lot of people to work for us on each project as freelancers. They would come in just for those days that we were planning or shooting. And one of them became a pretty good friend, and he eventually took a position at the New World company, production company, entertainment. I think it was actually called at the time New World Entertainment. It had been purchased from Roger Corman and was going to evolve into a different kind of production company, motion picture company. And he said he had a few scripts that were going to be made. Would I be interested in directing any of those? And my business partner to co-produce or to produce them. And so we looked at a few, and we were happy making TV commercials. Very successful at it. In fact, everything is great. We were late 20s, early 30s. I don't know, we were 30 or something like that. And we thought, no, let's just make TV commercials. And then he came back a couple of times and said, no, try this one, try this one. All the films he showed us, all the scripts he showed us ended up being made. And then he showed us this horror film and said, this is the one you really want to do. This is the way it's going to work. Look whose name is on it. Look who wrote it, that is. Look how it'll be for you in a career. You can take about 6 weeks, make the film, and then you can go back to make TV commercials. So I thought, that's genius. It wasn't 6 weeks. It was more like a year. But it was very much a career step, and it was successful, as you know. Everybody knows. It became kind of the leader in a franchise that blossomed into a lot of films. But we made it with the help of all the people who usually work for us as freelancers. We did it like we were making a TV commercial. We literally got the okay to go ahead and do it after I talked with the administrators, the leadership of the company at the time. About 2 days after I spoke to them, they said, sure, go make the film. So 2 days later, my business partner and I were on the airplane flying off to look for locations around the country. And we found those, came back, started pre-production for a couple of months, then went off and shot the film in 4 weeks, I think, something like that, pretty short schedule.
Wow.
Then came back to Los Angeles and went back to making TV commercials, set up our editing room down the block from our production office. So at lunchtime, during TV commercial work, I would walk down and edit with the editor and then go back to TV commercial work and then go back in the evening after I'd finished my TV commercial work, edit a little bit more. And we did that for about 8-10 weeks and then put this whole film together. Picked up more shots as we needed them in the country outside of, in the areas outside of Los Angeles or whatever. And then released the film in the springtime, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty fast effort in terms of production, but it was also about a year's worth of work, not what I was originally told. Oh, you just go make the movie and be back to work. Nah, that wasn't true.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you read the book first?
I did after I read the script, and then it was actually a novella, so it was a long short story, a novella, part of a collection of short stories of King at the time, and then learned while I was reading that and understanding what this was all about, that it was really a variation on a script that Stephen King had originally written to be a motion picture and had been shopped around Los Angeles, originally purchased by Hal Roach, the man who invented the Little Rascals, who wanted to kind of make a comeback with a new type of youth film. It's a little different than Little Rascals. But he had bought it. He had tried to set it up, get financing, that is, and no one liked it because it just didn't work as a true, structured, traditional horror Hollywood motion picture script. So these people at New World, looking for product, learned of it, bought it, hired another writer, who then changed it into a more traditional Hollywood product. And then that's when I was shown the script, and that's when I said, okay, let's do this. But then we further refined it from reading the novella and understanding the point of view of Stephen King to incorporate some of those things back into the script that we would shoot. We also eliminated some of the things from the novella and the original script, but we kind of balanced it. And then we turned it into a shooting script that we could do in a short period of time. So the economics of making the film kind of dictated what was allowed to be in the film. That included the effects and the way it looked and the way we did it in the time period in which we were allowed to make the film. So I guess you can say it didn't really follow the literature as much as it followed the economics of the process.
Mm-hmm. Was the cast all good to work with?
Oh, fantastic. They were great. They're all wonderful. In fact, Peter Horton, I just saw him in June. I was out in Los Angeles and visited with him. He's now the executive producer of the new Amsterdam television show. He's had a great career, and he's just riding high on things. Linda Hamilton is back making films just recently in the Terminator series.
Yep.
I talked to Courtney Gaines just a little while ago, the redheaded evil young man in the film. He and John are doing really well, doing things. So it's, they were wonderful to work with. They were all just really dedicated. All of us had a great energy. You know, we were young, we were excited. It was a first film. We wanted to do it really well. We wanted everything to work. We worked 20 hours a day. No one worried about how much, I don't know, were we getting fed? No, let's just make a movie. So there was a lot of really great collaboration, contributions.
I heard R.G. Armstrong shot all his scenes in one day.
That's a good question, and that's a good statement. That's one to remember. I think it was more than a day, but it was a short schedule. In the economy of making a film, the planning is always to make things in groups. So, yeah, anything we did outside, we would do it one time in a group. You know, we would shoot it over a couple of days. But R.G. Armstrong, he was on for a short period. I can't remember. But, yeah, it may have been just one day.
Yeah.
I think we spent one day at that gas station, and it rained.
Wow.
That day. And that caused us to go in the gas station bay, and I had to create a shot that looked outside onto the road during the rain, but we couldn't be outside in the rain. So I remember using the reflection of something to show the car moving outside while we were inside in the bay. Turned out to be a nice little scary horror movie image.
Yeah, well, I think you captured the whole movie really good on such a minimal budget.
Oh, it was a terrible budget.
Yeah.
That's the fun thing about doing those kind of films is you are challenged to be innovative. You can't afford, let's say, some expensive technical equipment, like a crane, for example. You can't really have a motion picture crane that gives you advantage in certain ways. So I wanted the image that is created by a moving camera on a crane, a big arcing move, but of course the money wasn't there to spend on those things. So we put it on 2x4s on stands with rotating heads, and we just built them ourselves and made the crane move and made it look like we had a crane, but we didn't. So we didn't spend money there. The monster at the end of the film, which was never defined in the script that I completely invented, was an underground a monster, or it needed these tentacles to be underground as well as above the earth and kind of all around us. The way I defined the monster was everything that we are afraid of at night in the woods when we're little. The thing underground was just really a wheelbarrow turned upside down in a trench, pulled by a cable. The trench is covered with vermiculite, and the track on which the wheelbarrow ran went up and down, and a tractor pulled the cable. So it was all kind of off camera, and I would wave, and the tractor would go away, and the wheelbarrow would go up on the track and travel along the track and stretch the vermiculite like a big burrowed mole hole or whatever, a mole track, and then go back down on the track, go lower, and it would go and look like it's going back underground. Those were all things we invented on the spot with the farm equipment that I saw when we got to our locations.
Mm-hmm. Well, you did a great job with it, I have to say. Can you believe it's been 35 years?
No, I can't. I can't.
Seems like yesterday, huh?
It's crazy. It goes too fast, and there's been too many variations, sequels to the film, the original idea.
Never saw any of the sequels.
I've seen parts of it because I knew a couple of the guys who worked on it. This is a fun fact, a stupid idea, a stupid fact, but this is a fun thing. Some of the students that I have taught who have graduated from the programs that I've run in cinema study, they were on the crew as cinematographer and producers and other crew members on the very last sequel to the film. So it's like they made sequel number 9 or 10, whatever it was. That's really scary. I made the first, and then my students made the last.
Yeah, I heard Charlize Theron was in one of them.
Yeah, oh yeah. She was in one. And actually, there's quite a few very well-known actors today that started or did one or, I don't know, a couple of the films, or were in the early films, were in the different sequels.
Yeah.
Particularly the early sequels, I'd say up till about number 4. Yeah. Charlize Theron was in number 2 or 3, something. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe someday I'll check it out. But then you followed it up with my favorite movie of yours, Tuff Turf.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a quick follow-up. In other words, the success of the box office, the box office success of Children of the Corn drove my popularity. So I was immediately approached with offers to do more films for a number of companies. The man who had contacted me, with whom we had worked on Children of the Corn, said the studio, Children of the Corn Studio, New World Entertainment, would like to do another film right away. Here's a script. And he had that Tuff Turf script. And I thought, this is cool. It's Romeo and Juliet. It's West Side Story.
Right.
This would be kind of an 80s version of that. Let's do that. So my business partner didn't join us. I went off and did the film with my friends at the time at New World. Yeah. And we did it locally in Los Angeles. And got a few of the people that had worked with us on Children of the Corn back again, casting people, production designer, a few others. And then I just went to town on it. It was fun. It was great. That cast turned out to be a heavy-duty cast in today's entertainment world. Robert Downey Jr. and James Spader, Jim Richards. They became pretty well known from that film.
Yeah, it boggles my mind why Paul Mones didn't become more successful as an actor, because he's so intense in that movie. Lovely.
He is just lovely. His performance was just great. He brought a lot. He understood it. His background was in the Meisner technique. He studied deeply in New York about it. He was somewhat critical of the other actors who were a little bit more laissez-faire in their approach to it, particularly Downey, who was kind of more reactive. Robert kind of stood back and just did what was, natural for him. And Moniz was just, wait, we got to do this. We got to think about the motivations and so forth. And the last I knew from Paul was that he had returned to New York. I believe he was living in upstate New York in Woodstock. He became a rabbi and developed quite a congregation there, I guess if you call them a congregation, and is now returning to film to tell stories of faith. And it's kind of cool. But yeah, he had an excitement to do a film that he had written right after he did Tuff Turf. And I believe he did that. And then he completely said, no, I'm going to live in the East Coast again, go to Woodstock.
Oh, that's unfortunate because he is a pretty talented guy, as you can see from the movie. I love how each scene morphs into the other scene with like this white cloud effect. That's really interesting editing.
The color wipes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, but as you when you make a film, you see a lot of things that you would like to do differently. You kind of keep a list of those things in your head, and when you get another chance to do another film, you start to think about those things that will improve your process, improve your skill set, and you go to that list and you say, okay, now I'd like to try this. My interest at the time was to explore the editorial process in a deeply different way than cinema had traditionally done it in storytelling, the Hollywood product. I thought that the editorial element or the filmic element of editing can be approached differently, more to make more impact, emotional impact. So what I was trying with color throughout the film was to kind of use the colors as a metaphor for particular emotions of the characters on the screen at the time. So you would make a transition, or so I made transitions using red when it was dangerous between a scene where people get arrested to the incoming scene of the danger of the problem of those kids getting arrested and how it affects the hero now that he's back at school, or blue or green, or like you said, white, that reaches out. It was kind of fun, and the jump cutting and the fooling around. There were even more effects, editorial effects, that I had assembled with the editor, Mark Grossman, that were taken away from us by the studio in their final cut of the film. They said, we don't understand this. We don't understand how you can show the camera running out. And I said, well, that's the whole point. It's reflexive. We're making a movie. Let's show everybody the process of the movie. It ruins the storytelling. There were things like that today people do more frequently.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. I think MTV had just started, so now I want to explore the music element as a factor in the film in terms of the cadence.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just fun to play around with editing and to be paid to do it. How can you go wrong?
Yeah, it's also a lot longer than most movies New World released, because most of their movies were like 80 to 90 minutes, but this is like just under 2 hours.
Well, that's the deal. You have to play to the exhibitor,
yeah.
And so you had to assemble your products for their approval with their business sense and their business direction in mind. How many screenings can an exhibitor put in their theaters during the day? So how long can that film be? 103 pages, 110 minutes, those kind of things. That's the way it always works. New World was pretty rigid about that. They're very strong in their genre products. They were a big genre studio. Look at what they made in the 80s. It was all genre product.
Yeah.
They didn't make too many art films anymore.
I love most of their movies. I have so many of them on VHS still.
Yeah. You got to get them on DVD. They look better.
Oh, I got some of them on DVD, but a whole lot of them are out of print or missing.
Yeah, they're crazy. Some of them are just crazy. And I was fortunate enough, kind of being on the inside with them, having 2 successful films, I was allowed to come to the selection meetings, that is, the pitch meetings with the president on Monday mornings. And so you would pitch ideas to him, and he would select them for production or for development. And I've been in those meetings. I had pitched a story, and he had said, yes, let's greenlight that. We'll make that film. And then someone else pitches in the same meeting, 2 minutes later, another story, and he turns to you, as he did to me, and says, you're out. This new one's in. Forget yours, Fritz. The other guy gets the trophy for the day. So it was kind of fun. It was kind of competitive. And how they approached their business was just, smart economics. Let's make movies for profit. And they did very well with it.
Yeah. The scene that kills me the most is when they're at the country club, and Olivia Burrash is having that conversation with those other rich girls about how penis size matters. And then she says that she gagged the first time she swallowed. She's so hilarious in that scene.
She's great. So's Downey, who improvised that stuff with very, very, very Manilow, that kind of stuff. Know him very, very well. The truth, or the behind the scenes on that, is that we went to photograph all of that work at the Riviera Country Club in Los Angeles. They're outside of Bel Air, in Beverly Hills. And we did the approach and a few other things to the country club. That is, when the kids walk in the main building and a few other things, but ran out of time. So we could only photograph the band, the kids dancing, the kids walking, our heroes walking into the country club, Spader singing at the piano, and anything else. The food table, I believe. No, food table was elsewhere. Then I went back after the film was assembled and did pickup shots for that sequence. I organized from the budget monies to build a 2-wall set of the entire country club interior, and all of those jokes and all of that kind of montage sequence of the kids behaving, being the fish out of water with all these country club kids, were all done in one evening from about 5 until midnight with a few of us, the actors and a few crew people. I wrote all the jokes except the ones Bobby improvised, and we just banged them out. I knew exactly what shots and how to do them, but those were really done fast, and it turned out to be, as you enjoy, a good sequence.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's the most
a lot of fun. That was all from the hip.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Most memorable sequence in the movie, I think. How did Jim Carroll get involved?
Oh, I love Jim Carroll's music. When I read Basketball Diaries, I thought this guy's fantastic. Learning of his background with Lou Reed, with the downtown art scene at the time, late 70s, Andy Warhol and everything, I thought this was fantastic. And then when I heard his album, Catholic Boys, I just kind of wore it out. I played it so often. So the music track had to be, of the times. It had to be cool. I thought his music was great. They liked, the studio liked, blues player Thorogood. Was it John Thorogood?
George Thorogood.
George Thorogood. Pardon me. I should have known. George Thorogood. And they wanted that music, and I didn't like it. So I got them to approach Jim Carroll. His wife, being a lawyer at the time, said, we'll do it, but he has to be in the movie. It's fantastic for me. I threw up my hands. Great. I cheered. Touchdown. So I quickly figured out a way to insert him with dialogue with the other characters in the scenes, and got him to perform. And then used his one track of his work off of Catholic Boys in the movie. He didn't sing it. We just took the recording, but it's the only version that has certain verses in it. Let me say it another way. We were able to use one of his songs, and that version has verses that no other recordings of the song have. So it's kind of a standout. I think it's called People Who Died. And he pointed it out to me when he saw the film. And turned out to be great. He was terrific. He was absolutely terrific. Great guy.
Yeah, his music really fits in. I can't imagine George Thorogood's music being in that movie.
No, it didn't work. He was just right. And Marianne Faithfull, somebody I also enjoyed at the time, who was kind of out of favor. She wasn't popular, but I loved her voice. Mm-hmm. And she had a album out at the time, and I talked to the composer, and we got a hold of her, and he spent hours with her just improvising at the piano, just singing and just kind of noodling and exploring different tonalities and just melodies and so forth, and then came up with the opening of the movie. That piece of music. Mm-hmm. And that's very unfaithful. And then all the others, they were just, we went after a certain kind of current rock, 80s rock sound, and we got them. It was great.
Yeah, how did you find Jack back in the Heart Attack?
At that time in Los Angeles, my TV commercial company was around the corner from a bunch of hip places, nightclubs, and so we would take clients when we made commercials out for dinners and things, how you entertain while you're making those films. Mm-hmm. And I saw Jack back in the Heart Attack many times, and I loved him. And I just love James Brown. I love the big horn section review soul bands. They were just what I learned when I was a kid. I used to follow them. So I thought that would be cool. So I invented this Club 60s, and the openings everybody performs, and we put Jack Mack in there, and they did a great job in the front and in the back of the film at the end.
Yeah, they were coming off of doing the Police Academy theme at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, they were great. They were just, and I saw them around town, and, at the time, new wave music was really getting popular, and was popular, and punk was really happening downtown in Chinatown and different places. So I would go see the shows all over the city, and I would see them, and they were just really, really nice to me. And come on, hang with us and watch this, and we're going to do a record contract performance here. Come to our performance. And they were great. I don't know if they're still playing, but I love that sound that they did.
Yeah, they were pretty good, pretty underrated. Then you did Winners Take All.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Any great stories about that movie?
Uh-huh. I did that. Pardon me. That was a movie that I took on because I needed to make a living. After making Tuff Turf, I had slowed down making television commercials and thought I would stay in the feature world. And I just didn't see anything that was that exciting in terms of scripts, and I wasn't getting offers. The ones I wanted to do, like RoboCop, that I was offered RoboCop, but the studio wouldn't accept me because I wasn't known as a big action director at the time after Tuff Turf. So they sought others, and so it was difficult. I wasn't finding something that was really good, and that came along, and I thought, okay, I can do this. Here's another. It was being done by a new company, a man whose background had been at United Artists, and he again wanted to make genre pictures, and that's what I knew. And I said, okay, terrific. So I went to work with him, and immediately asked the camera operator from Tuff Turf, Elliot Davis, with whom I had shot all the pickup shots, the opening title sequences, and got to know very well as we were making Tuff Turf, if he wanted to be a cinematographer and take a chance shooting this film, this low-budget film. So he and I set off to do that. Elliot Davis now, Twilight Saga, he's a major cinematographer. He's huge. But at the time, he was making a transition out of being the camera operator into the cinematographer's chair. So he too wanted to try new things and different things. And we had a different approach. And this collided with the producers who were stuck on the economics. Let's make a bottom line. Let's not make a movie. And this motorcycle film, this story of these kids, fulfills a genre. It can be done for a price. And let's not do anything too new. So there was conflict. And so Elliot had to leave the film, and another guy was forced in as cinematographer who could just make the schedule. He could photograph quickly. He could do everything that was on the mind of the storyboards that I had put together. So I enjoyed making the film. It was cool. I got to meet a lot of good people and got to work with a number of people I'd worked with before, like Courtney Gaines, I believe was in that film.
Right.
Holding a Corn. And others, crew people, and got to become a better friend with Elliot. And I thought we did a really good job, which we did do together. But it just met a schedule. That was what it was all about. Let's make a movie. So I'm not really excited about the outcome of that film as much as I am about the chance to meet new people and kind of explore and develop career relationships.
Yeah, my friend Kathleen Kinmont played a party girl in it.
Catherine Kinmont was your friend?
Yeah, she's a friend of mine.
Well, you say hello from me. I remember interviewing her a bunch of times, and when she was on the film, because of the interviews she would come in on, and unfortunately, like TV commercials would have, didn't get the job. I think I just kept calling her Kinmont, like I had known her for 100 years. But we knew each other from all the auditions and things that she had done that we had both been part of. So, yeah, she was fun. I remember her.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah. I didn't know she was still in Los Angeles. Good for her.
Yeah, she is.
Yay. Yay.
Then,
everybody.
Yeah.
But I must say, on that film,
yeah,
the great relationships, one of the coolest things I got to do, the producer said, I don't want any other stunt coordinator, stunt person than this man. And I said, I had just worked on a film with a guy who had won the Stunt Association Fight of the Year on the fight that we had in that film. Why not? He said, no, you want this guy. He's going to be your stunt guy. His name is Ernie Orsatti. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, fine. Well, I met Ernie, and oh my gosh, I met Hollywood royalty. His uncle, his father, all had been stuntmen. His son became a stuntman, Noon Orsatti, who does all the Expendables. He's done now. I watched and worked with Ernie on the next 3 films that I was able to make, and watched him and his son do unbelievable things together. I watched Ernie light his son on fire for a fire gag. Watched him drop him down a 2-story stairwell as another stunt gag. He's just unbelievable. And Ernie and I, with those motorcycles, got along terrifically well. He was just a great collaborator and a great human being, and he understands film. He was doing, I think, 2 other TV shows at the time as stunt coordinator, so he would come out just for when we were doing stunts, and he had I remember a towel, like a shop rag, that he would twist nervously as he waited and tried to get things going, and then he would use it as the signal to go ahead, for action. And so we used to laugh about that. I remember getting a bunch of shop rags monogrammed for him as a thank you after we were done, like 24 of them or something, and presented in a really fancy package. But there were all those little grease towels that people use in their garage to clean their cars. Yeah. So he was great. I think Ernie's still around today. I think he's retired, but I certainly know Noon is still in the top of his game as a coordinator. They're just terrific. I think that's one of the best things that came out of that film.
Yeah. And then you made a huge departure into the world of sword and sorcery with gore.
I didn't make that film.
Oh, you didn't?
I'll explain.
Okay.
I really don't take credit for that film. I was offered a chance to go make 2 films in Africa, and I thought that's terrific. It was Connecticut Yankee King Arthur's Court-based story. This is terrific. But I didn't understand the people I was working with. And when I got to Africa, I discovered that I wasn't there to make a film, but in fact was there to kind of make a product that was used as a vehicle to move money out of Africa into different money markets. And so I quit the film about 6 weeks into it when I saw there were 3 or 4 other films going on at the time. We were all under the same kind of business plan. They were all kind of being used, and it was just not the right thing to do. It just wasn't filmmaking. It was all about just go shoot anything, and we'll fulfill the contract that will enable this transfer of funds between countries. That's basically what it ended up being. And I didn't understand it when I started. When I saw it, I didn't want to do it anymore. So I left. I didn't make the second film that I was contracted to make. I left before the end of my first film was complete, when there was still a couple of stunts to do. And the producers brought in a guy who finished the stunts and then went on to make the second film. And when I saw the film, what I saw was my work combined with his work to make one film. Mm-hmm. A whole new script. Nothing that both of us had either gone out to make. And for some reason, I was credited with making this film that wasn't the film that I made. So I said, no, I didn't really do this. Mm-hmm. I didn't. But that's what it is. But there were nice people on that film, and it was fun to be in Africa. And I went back years later and did a TV series there and enjoyed myself. It's quite a place, South Africa.
Yeah.
But it's not a film that I can really say I put myself into like I did Children of the Corn or Tuff Turf. It wasn't everything that I wanted to do to make that story work.
But did you get to direct Jack Palance and Oliver Reed?
Oliver Reed, yes. I never saw Jack Palance.
Oh.
He was on the second film.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean. A lot of it was the second film. Oliver Reed was the bad guy in the film I did. And unfortunately, he was inebriated every day.
Yeah.
And he couldn't stand up on many scenes. So he could match his actions, but he couldn't say the lines. So everything had to be kind of put together from whatever he said and did, and that became the scene. That made the other actors suffer. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. It made the story go in different directions. And again, another reason why, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
It was. But when he was sober, he was really interesting to speak with and talk about the history of cinema. You know, his British involvement or his involvement in the British New Wave way back in the early 60s, late 50s. I mean, this guy has some just great stories about what cinema was like in those days in England. There's some really great films that he was involved in. So.
Oh yeah, a lot of those drunk guys like Richard Harris, Peter O'Toole, they all told really good stories. I heard, you know, aside from their drinking.
Oh yeah, they're carrying on, but also the kind of films they were making. I mean, This Sporting Life. You mentioned Richard Harris. This Sporting Life about a rugby player, I believe, in England, working class. The differences between the classes of England. You know, just it's really cool. It's just really honest. It was British New Wave, a great time of cinema, great genre of cinema, class. And those guys did some neat work.
They sure did. Then you did another favorite of mine, Under the Boardwalk.
Yeah, that was Under the Boardwalk was fun because I was asked by New World Entertainment to take a film over. They said, "We know you want to do a couple of films. I'll tell you what, you can do those films. We'll let you choose whatever film you want to make. Then we'll choose one together. But all you have to do is take over this film that started and it's not working for us. It's only 1 week into production." So I looked at the work that had been photographed, and I agreed with them that things were not editorially going to fit together the way the story had outlined them. This was a completely different kind of story, and it wasn't really good filmmaking. So they said, how long do you want? I said, well, how about 2 weeks, and we'll figure out the story, and we'll look for cast, and we'll do this. So literally, without really breaking stride, I took the film over. I was one of the scab labor kind of directors that came in after the original director was fired. And within a few days, we were up and shooting and back on schedule and making the film that the studio wanted to have made. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be really fun. Hired a few new actors, but pretty much took the actors that had originally been cast and came up with another version of West Side Story on the beach, Romeo and Juliet. That's all it is again.
Yeah, I actually think it's more Romeo, Juliet, West Side Story. I think Tuff Turf is more Rebel Without a Cause.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what that's all about, with the elements of Romeo and Juliet and the cast differences between the lovers. But yeah, it is Rebel Without a Cause, certainly. And one of the things I kind of fought Jimmy Spader on is he and I both recognized the underlying Rebel Without a Cause element of Tuff Turf. And so he watched the James Dean films, which I said, don't watch those. And so he was, influenced and wanted to be James Dean for a lot of the scenes, through his body language, his movements, his speech patterns, all the kind of things that add to a certain kind of performance. And we would keep arguing against that, and then editorially had to kind of find him not doing that interpretation of James Dean so that his performance became unique. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're very similar in terms of what those stories, what the message of the story is all about.
Yeah, Danielle von Zernick, she was coming off of La Bamba. She's so talented.
Oh, she was great. Her father was a big filmmaker, Frank von Zernick. She went on, I think, to be one of the producers for him. He did an enormous amount of TV movies of the week. And so I think she went in that area. One of the fun things that we got to do, you were in the final post-production stages doing re-recording of actors' voices, looping, picking up lines that were not nicely recorded or properly recorded, or a new line. You know that process when you're on the stage and you're watching the film and you're talking through a microphone, re-recording the lines. She had to do hers. So she came to the dubbing stages with the guy from The Clash, Joe Strummer. And I got to meet Joe Strummer, and he said, I've never seen this process before. Do you mind if I watch? No, come on in, Joe. This is great. Can I come backstage to your show? So she was dating him at the time, and it was kind of fun. So he hung around there for a day or two, and we got to know him. Nice. She's quite good. Yeah, she's very good.
Keith Coogan, he comes from an acting family.
Yeah. I don't know what happened to Keith. I think he probably continued on making films.
He does a lot of conventions, I know.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a Hollywood, royalty family kind of thing. So he's got a lot of interesting stories.
You got to,
others in the film.
You got to direct the legendary Dick Miller.
Oh, Dick Miller. He was fantastic. He was the good luck charm that the producers insisted be in it, and I was thrilled because there he was. He was one of Joe Dante's company members, and that was very cool. And I saw so many of those films, and Dick was in every one of them. It was kind of cool. One of the coolest people I got to be with for a day, Sonny Bono.
Oh yeah,
he plays this older surfer beach type person who has a couple of wonderful lines in the film. I remember him saying the story, he enters a place and there's a band, and he says, someone says there's a band, and he says, a band? I was in a band. And I always thought that was hilarious because, he and his wife, Cher, always made fun of him being anything important in the music that they did together. So he was great. He had great stories. And at the time, he was the mayor of Palm Springs.
Right.
So he came down to Los Angeles for a couple of days, and we hung out on the beach. And I just sat next to him in a beach chair for 2 days, talking stories about what you do with this, and how'd you get that song started, and tell me more about Phil Spector. You worked for him for how long?
Yeah,
these kind of things. It was great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had Dick Miller's wife Lainey on this summer. She misses him so much.
I think everybody misses him. He was just one of the nicest, kindest man. After you make a film, you get things from actors. Everybody is very, very generous in Hollywood. They give things to each other. They're very, social and so forth. And he wrote me the nicest letter, thanking me for allowing him to be part of the film. But my feeling was it was the other way around. I owed him great thanks for wanting to do something with me. It was just this nice handwritten thing that I still have today. He was great.
Oh. How was making Fatal Charm?
Well, one of my old friends, after I made Children of the Corn, I was called to meet many, many people. I called by people to meet them, producers. One of them was a guy named, one of them is a man named Bruce Cohn Curtis. His uncle was Harry Cohn, who started Columbia Studios.
Yeah.
I thought fantastic. He just finished Dreamscape. This is a cool...
Love that movie.
Randy Quaid.
No, Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid, that's who it was. Dennis Quaid in this kind of internal adventure of, what do you call horror and supernatural, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I thought, great, I'll go meet him. He had a company. He was making films. He invited me to go see Abel Ferrara's film that he had just finished. We were having a screening. So I got to meet Abel Ferrara, and I saw that film, which had a great cast in it. And we talked, and over the years, we had just become friends, talking about projects, sending scripts back and forth. And then he came to me with that one and said, I want to make this. Come on, do it. I've got the money. We're going to start like the day after tomorrow. I thought, okay. We got along really well. Chris Atkins, great guy. Amanda Peterson was willing to do the film, and her background was very strong, and she understood filmmaking really well. She was the right age and really, really appropriate for the role, and it was a cool little film. There were other issues about it that made it difficult, but it was fun. So I enjoyed it, and even today I still talk with Bruce. I just got an email from him last night, in fact. He's still trying to make movies and making films. He's great. I haven't spoken with Chris Atkins in years, but I think a lot of him. He's just terrific. I can't think who else is in the film.
Oh, you worked with another friend of mine, Larpark Lincoln.
Larpark, the woman who always played the woman in distress in the empty parking lot at night. Yeah, she's very good. She's wonderful. Is she still in Los Angeles?
She lives in Texas. She teaches acting out there, and she comes on the podcast quite frequently. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, give her my best. She was wonderful, and I enjoyed getting to meet her and being around her. She had a great professional attitude. She knew exactly how everything worked in terms of what her character provided for the narrative, and that was a unique thing to see from an actor. Usually, actors look to, here's what I want to be. Here's how you're going to make the movie around me. And she understood how her contribution, her character, helped tell the story of others. And so I always appreciated that. She really understood film. She was good. She was funny. She had a great time.
Oh, she's got a great sense of humor, Laura. How was working with Ken Foree?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there.
How was it working with Ken Foree?
Remind me of Ken.
Big black guy. He was in Dawn of the Dead.
No. I don't remember him.
Okay.
What did he do?
I can try to remember. I know he's in the movie.
You have to edit this part out.
Yeah.
I may sound like an idiot here, but I can't remember Ken.
That's okay. It's okay. How was making Into the Sun?
Well, that was a lot of fun. It started out in a pitch to make a movie that developed over a year's time. And Bob Downey Jr. was going to be our out-of-control actor with the big pompous ego. Mm-hmm. And as we got closer with a more complete script by John Brocato and I think Ferris, I can't remember, Michael Ferris and John Brocato, and things got okayed by the studio, I talked to Bob and said, okay, here's the plan. We're going to do this kind of stuff. You still want to do it? And he said, well, I got a little problem here. Okay, this is Hollywood. How much is it going to cost? That's all I could think of. And he said, Fritz, you know how much I enjoyed making the film with you. You let me do anything. You gave me the space that actors ask for. You were just terrific. But I've been asked to play Chaplin, you know? Mm-hmm. And here's the deal. I get to choose the wallpaper of the motor home they're going to give me, and all you're going to give me is a ride in an F-16 in the back seat. I said, come on. What? You got to be kidding me. Okay, I get it. So it was a huge, big career step, and of course I would have turned down my film for the chance to play Charlie Chaplin and establish a career like Bob has had. I mean, it was terrific. So we worked with his good friend from Saturday Night Live. What's his name? Michael.
Michael Pare?
No, not Michael Pare on that film. Oh, well, Michael Pare is on that film, yes. He was a good guy, great to work with.
Yeah, I love him.
The comedian who took, who's in 16 Candles, he took Bob Downey Jr.'s role to play the wild, out-of-control actor.
John Kapelis?
No.
Oh, look.
John. 3 names.
Oh, Anthony Michael Hall.
Anthony Michael Paul, yeah. Anthony Michael Paul took the role, or was accepted the role that Robert Downey Jr. was going to play, but couldn't play it because of Chaplin. And he sat in the back of the F-16. So off we went to make it. And Michael Pare was just wonderful to be around. I wasn't a great, I didn't get socially involved and was not around Anthony Michael Paul a lot because he was much younger, and so he had his own entourage, and he would run off. But Pare and I were about the same age, and so we saw life the same way. And we hung out. It was great. He and his wife and my wife, and he just gave it his all, professional. Deborah Moore, Roger Moore's daughter, is in it.
Yeah.
It was kind of her first bigger role in the United States. She's in town. She's wonderful. Actually, I loved her. She was great. She just gave it her all.
How about?
And we were out in the desert north of Los Angeles a lot. We were in really crummy conditions, and she was just so strong and willing to do it all. She was really, really good. And again, the stunt guys were great. One of my favorite guys in the industry, John Hardigan, excellent, top physical effects specialist, was on the film with me. We had met in Africa, in fact, and done other things, and both from upstate New York, and so had a lot of similar mutual interests he came out and he blew up all kinds of things all the time. I just trusted him. You just go blow that up, it'll be fine. And his work on things like Spielberg films,
right?
Catch Me If You Can, or
that's a good one.
He does Hawaii Five-0 now, and he does Magnum now. He does both shows over in Hawaii, and he's constantly doing things. His family's involved in the industry in different areas. He's just accurate. When he blows things up, he knows exactly where the parts will fall. He's just great.
Mm-hmm.
So he was on the film, and we had a really good time. And like I said, I trusted him blowing up everything because he knew exactly how to be safe. He was just great.
How about working with Terry Kaiser?
You can't laugh. You can't hold your laughter around Terry Kaiser.
Yeah.
When I first met him, I just thought we were going to have the best time, and we talked about the scenes, and then just Terry, go do them. And he would just improvise and add shtick and do things that were characterological and wonderful. And there's so much that he did that we didn't put in the film that we should have put in the film. And at the time when we were in between setting up, and we were talking about things, he said, I've been offered this film. Tell me what you think about this idea. I'm supposed to be dead in the whole film. Mm-hmm. And these guys carry me around as if I'm alive. Do you think I could do that? Well, how do you do that? And we would talk about it and laugh. And Weekend at Bernie's turned out to be a great film because of him.
Yeah.
He was just genius. I just love Terry Kaiser. I wish he was like Miller. I wish he was still around.
He's in Texas. He teaches acting as well. And Laura, she talks to him every now and then because they did Friday the 13th Part 7 together. But I met him. Yeah, I met him at a convention a couple years ago, and he is literally the sweetest man I've ever met in my life.
He's extremely wonderful. But, what I heard, and the reason I said I wish he was around like Dick Miller, is I heard he died. I heard he passed away. Oh, man, if he's in Texas, I got to find him and send him a note.
Yeah, because I've talked to his personal assistant about getting him on the podcast, and he's just not quite ready yet. But, yeah, he's up and kicking.
Oh, man, that's great. That's great. Well, life is good.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. You brought me new news.
Yeah. I'm glad I could help you.
Thank you. Keep me informed. Get me up out of the chair. It's good.
You directed some episodes.
This cold is still hanging on.
Yeah. You directed some episodes of the Swamp Thing series.
Yeah, I was asked to take on the pilot. And I wanted to get into TV episodics a little more strong, to get stronger in TV episodics, and this was a good chance. The real excitement for me was Joe Stefano. He was the executive producer, and he wrote the series. He is the writer of Hitchcock's Psycho. So when making the series with him, a couple of them, I believe I did 2 or so of those, stories about Hitchcock. I would just ask him, what was it like to be around Hitch when you did this, and this on Psycho? How did you get this? How did you do that? He was wonderful. He and his wife both. We were all in Florida together for the weeks that we did the work at Universal Studios. And he was just the most, sharing and caring and interested and easy producer to be around and be with and work for. And I kept up with him until he died. He was great. But he was the real reason I jumped at the chance, because here's another important contributor to the history of Hollywood cinema, and someone from which you can learn, and I learned. So I took advantage of it and did the work for him, and happily did it. It was great. The conditions to work in an amusement park like Universal Studios Amusement Park are very difficult. The series is an attraction for the visitors, for the guests. So you are cordoned off. You have enough space around your work area to do the work, but the visitors in the park are always looking over your shoulder. There were stages built specifically with windows production being made, go home, and 2 weeks later see what they saw at the park as kind of a souvenir. Mm-hmm. And that made it difficult. It took away from the real purpose of making these stories and making a story. It started to push you into an area where you felt like you were an attraction, something for others. You were being used. So it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but around Joe Stefano and the others in the company, everything seemed to be good and was balanced. So it was a fun experience. And it also kind of opened the door to making quick, hard, assembly line, episodic work. Right. I went on, I did a few more episodic shows, doing the pilots of them and then doing further episodes. And I learned quickly with Joe that 10 pages of shooting a day is required. And you have to know how to do that. And you have to know the economy of filmmaking and how to do things that are fast and quick and tell the story at certain parts of the story. And then in other parts of the story, take your time and do more, let's call it filmically expensive camera angles and movements and more elaborate processes to tell the story the way that you might really want to tell the story. So it's a wonderful training. It's really a good way to learn how to, do the work. So it really becomes instinctual. You know exactly where to put cameras. You know exactly how long it will take before you are on to the next shot. You know exactly when it will be cut so that you don't worry about actors flubbing their lines or going up on a line, because you know that from that point, just before they flub or go up, you'll have a cut to another character as they watch the reaction of that speech of the actor who just threw their line. So you don't have to worry about anything. It's just mechanics, and it's a great place to learn it. And he was great about that.
Yeah, you got to work with Peter Mark Richmond in the episode.
Yeah. Now, I can't remember which one that was. He had a very theatrical approach to the work. I remember that. But his history, again, he was an old-timer. He knew his work, and it was cool. And many of the people have great experience in the process, in performing art. You just talk with them a little bit, and you ask if they could do it a certain way, and then you let them go. You don't ever try to show them anything. You just realize that if they could invent a different approach to it, let them come up with an answer. And he was one of those people. What if you did it with more, if it was colder outside, how would that look? And for example, and he would add that sense of shiver and that sense of feeling, cold at the core to the performance, and that would make it completely different. So he was wonderful that way. Nice. Not that it was cold in Florida, but by example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you retired from directing these days?
No. I've done a lot here. I've done a lot at university in small projects, documentaries or testimonials, informational films, things that I have a little bit more interest in, personal interest in, issues like teen alcoholism and things like that. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of those. I have projects out right now. I've decided to go back and get more involved with large commercial filmmaking. So I've written more scripts, got those out. We'll see how those develop. I would still like to tell some stories that have been in my thoughts or I put on paper and turned into a script years ago. I think they're valuable, and I'd like to get those voices out, those messages out, so my voice can be heard. I don't think I've completed the master work yet. You asked me about which films I like. Mm-hmm. I appreciate, and Color of Money to me is a masterpiece. I'd like to make a film that I can point to and say, this is a culmination of all that I've learned. I think in the last 10 years being around academics, I've learned more about the process than I've ever experienced and learned while I was making it. So now I think my skill set is probably 5 times better than it ever was.
Nice.
So there's lots to do. So no, I'm not retired. I think we have a purpose. If we can still add purpose, we can give purpose, we can show others, we shouldn't retire. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why stop?
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about the strange time that we're living in where it's hard to get films released in theaters?
It's a mixed kind of thing. I appreciate the the volume of work. I appreciate the variety of voice that comes with this volume of work, but sometimes I don't appreciate the format in which that medium is coming to me. I don't think watching a film like The Irishman, which I watched the other night on my large television monitor, I'll call it that, big flat screen that's maybe 60 inches or so, is as cool as watching that film in a theater on a 60-foot screen, where the subtlety of performance, the blink of an eye, the internal thought is kind of diminished on these smaller screens. That it's made for the big screen. That's the performance. There's a skill set to the performance based on how it will be exhibited, how it will be received, the reception theory. And so I'm a mix on those. I like the idea there's more people making them. I like the accessibility of equipment. I like the digital side of things, the speed at which things can be made, tried, and remade. But I don't like the way they're delivered in terms of the format. I think it's rotten to think that we can get a piece of work understood via a cell phone screen.
I agree.
I don't care for that. It kind of kills me. The size of the frame, the construction of the image is part of the image. And so when you look at it on different formats, you're not looking at the construction as it was originally planned.
Right.
I guess I'm getting a little film theory here, but that aggravates me.
Yeah.
Because of composition and how things work, very important, integral to a good storytelling.
Yeah, I prefer
get that.
I prefer to watch the movie in theaters. I mean, I do have Amazon and Netflix. But when a new movie gets released, I'd rather watch it in the theater than on the computer.
Very much so. And you have to. Well, maybe I'm going to force you to say this, Tom, but I think certain films are made for certain screens, and we have to recognize those when the choice that we make when we have to recognize that purpose when we make the choice to see the film. I don't know. Spider-Man is not made for a small screen. It's a big spectacle, almost IMAX kind of thing. The Irishman is a regular large motion picture screen. It's not made for a TV home monitor. But it gets made because the delivery system, now the streaming systems that are so popular, have the funding and the demand behind them for a product. So let's make them. But let's also release them in the traditions of cinema.
Yeah, when I watch a movie on Netflix, I think to myself, this could be like, today's, TV movie of the week or HBO or Showtime movie because the budget is so low, and the production values are not that great.
Yeah, it's right. I think there's a lot of mistake and oversight. That is, the aesthetic is people look over the aesthetic. They look away from it. Years ago, when you looked at the production design of the MGM product, and it was all beautiful, and Cedric Gibbons' work was stamped on every one of those films from 1920 through about 1950, you saw a continuity of a certain aesthetic and beauty. And the elements of those production design pieces, or the production design elements, actually contribute to the narrative in very, very strong and informative ways. Today, now we can establish kind of that must be a record producer's office because there are 3 gold records on the wall. Oh, okay, that's great. So we overlook that. And on a small screen, that's fine. But on a big format, I want to, walk through the story. I want to take my eyes for a walk through that frame.
Yeah.
See everything. Yeah.
Very well said. Well, Fritz, I think we covered some great stuff today, and I thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tommy. It was very nice for you to ask me. I enjoy talking about things like this for cinema, and those who enjoy it maybe might find something interesting, and I'm happy to do it. I appreciate that you're out there carrying the escutcheon forward, to put it that way. Carry that flag.
I'm trying to. But yes, I
Keep
appreciate
it. I greatly also really applaud you. I bow down to you. Lord Park Lincoln, Dick Miller, about him. Terry Kaiser, what he's about. Yeah, that's great. It's just so cool.
Yeah, I'm trying, I mean, the last few years have been very challenging and difficult, but I've pulled through it and I've persevered, and I'm going to continue to do so into the next decade.
That's the deal, man. Never stop at the top.
Yes.
That's it. That's the mantra.
Well, Fritz, you have yourself a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. I hope the best for everybody, your family, and everyone.
Thank you so much.
You're in Los Angeles, right?
I'm in Redding, but I go to Los Angeles a lot. I'm trying to move out there. Yeah.
I know Redding. Okay. Well, maybe we'll connect one time. We'll catch up.
I'd love to.
You know how else I can help you? Happy to.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it so much. So happy holidays to you, and God bless.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Fritz Kiersch. Ain't he a cool dude? Just humble guy, nice guy. I like him a lot. Great stories about the independent film scene. It's just as frustrating as the mainstream film scene, as you can tell. And that guy has pulled through, and I applaud him. He is the man. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes!